All right, let's start with the big story that we're tracking at WION at this hour, where trade and counter-terrorism have dominated the discourse on day 2 of the informal meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping. Now, in his press conference, Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale has said that the focus of this informal summit was, amongst other things, on several aspects, such as people-to-people contacts, besides key areas of defense and investment. Now, Gokhale also said that the two leaders had a conversation for 6 long hours. This is such a long period of time for a face-to-face conversation during a meeting of this sort. And they also reportedly had delegation-level talks as well. A total of about 6 hours of one-to-one meetings were held between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Xi Jinping during the summit. The two leaders stressed on the need to establish a new trade mechanism as well. Now, hailing the relationship between India and China, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has now called the informal summit in Chennai as a new chapter in the relationship between the two Asian giants. Now, the Indian Prime Minister delivered the opening remarks at the delegation-level talks in Chennai on day 2 of the informal meeting with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. The Prime Minister Modi said that India and China have moved from the Wuhan spirit to the Chennai Connect. The Prime Minister Modi has also added that India and China's relationship will have an impact internationally.
तमिलनाडु राज्य और ऐतिहासिक शहर चेन्नई सदियों से भारत और चीन के बीच हमारे सांस्कृतिक और व्यापारिक आदान प्रदान का साक्षी है। मुझे खुशी है कि इस सांस्कृतिक धरोहर के कुछ सर्वोत्कृष्ट उदाहरणों के आपको परिचित कराने का गौरव हमें मिला। एक्सेलेंसी, पिछले 2000 सालों के अधिकांश कालखंड भारत और चीन दुनिया की प्रमुख आर्थिक शक्तियां रही हैं। अब इस शताब्दी में हम फिर से साथ साथ उस स्थिति को प्राप्त कर रहे हैं। एक्सेलेंसी, पिछले वर्ष वुहान में हमारी इनफॉर्मल समिट से हमारे संबंधों में इंक्रीज स्टेबिलिटी और फ्रेश मोमेंटम आया है। दोनों पक्षों के बीच स्ट्रेटेजिक कम्युनिकेशन बढ़ा है। हमने तय किया था कि हम मतभेद को प्रूडेंटली मैनेज करेंगे और डिस्प्यूट नहीं बनने देंगे। एक दूसरे के कंसर्न के बारे में कारक होंगे। चेन्नई समिट में अब तक हमारे बीच द्विपक्षीय और वैश्विक मुद्दों पर महत्वपूर्ण विचार विनिमय हुआ है। वुहान स्पिरिट ने हमारे संबंधों को एक नया मोमेंटम और ट्रस्ट दिया। आज के हमारे चेन्नई कनेक्ट से दोनों देशों के बीच सहयोग का एक नया दौर शुरू होगा।
And also President Xi Jinping has added that he was overwhelmed by the welcome that he received in India. The president also believed that the informal summit between the two countries was actually an extremely good idea. The two leaders also engaged in what were described as heart-to-heart conversations on the issue of bilateral relationship.
Mr. Prime Minister, last year we held the first informal summit. Actually, this initiative was put forward by you, Mr. Prime Minister, and I agree that it is a good idea. Indeed, the Wuhan summit ushered China-India relations into a new stage of healthy and steady development. For the past 1 year or so, the informal summit communication more effective, and we have a closer cooperation on multilateral occasions. What has happened has proved that we have made the right decision to have this kind of informal summit. and we can well continue with this form of meeting. China and India are each other's important neighbor, and we are the only two major countries, each with over 1 billion people. To maintain and grow China-India relations is a firm policy of China. Yesterday and earlier today, Mr. Prime Minister, as you said, you and I have engaged in candid discussions as friends in these heart-to-heart discussions on bilateral relations. We have had really in-depth engagement and good discussions. I am happy and I really enjoy our conversations so far. So I look forward to further discussions in an in-depth manner with you in the full delegation discussion and make further plans for bilateral relations.
And also Prime Minister Narendra Modi gifted the Chinese president a silk shawl that had President Xi Jinping's face weaved into it. And also interestingly, one of the other gifts that was exchanged was this one. It is a porcelain dish which has the imprint of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's face that also was exchanged between the two leaders. And apart from this, presents to the Chinese president included a painting of the Chinese president as well. And earlier, one-on-one talks between the Indian Prime Minister and President Xi Jinping had concluded at the Premier Beach Resort in Chennai's Kovalam Beach. Now, the personal rapport between the two leaders was on full display when Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with the Chinese president. And this, of course, is the second day of the India-China informal meeting, which took place in Kovalam, a fishing village that is roughly about 40 kilometers away from Chennai. All right, now to add more perspective in terms of what has unfolded as a part of this informal summit between India and China, we are joined in by Professor Brahma Chalani, who is also a strategic affairs expert. Now, Professor Chalani, let me begin by asking you this. What do you think are the big takeaways in terms of what has transpired as this very important summit that has taken place between India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping?
The summit outcome was rich in symbolism, but low in substance. If you look at the core issues, the Indian Foreign Secretary said that for India, one central issue was the growing trade deficit with China. What did India get? What India got was a commitment by China to keep talking with India on the trade issue, and to have even a elevated trade mechanism with the Indian finance minister meeting with the Chinese vice premier. So the Chinese have made the Indians commit to further talks on trade issues.
Right.
Which means that Indians will not borrow a leaf from Trump's playbook. In other words, the Chinese have averted Indian tariffs while they keep talking to the Indians. Now, this is an important win for China on the trade issue, because as long as the Indians keep talking to the Chinese, the Indians will not, certainly not impose tariffs on Chinese goods. But, you know, if you look at the border discussions, they've been going on since 1981. They're the longest bringing India along, but 38 years on the border issue,
right,
without giving an inch. Similarly, on the trade issue, China can keep these talks going for a long time. So in Wuhan, we got a commitment, according to the Indian statement, a commitment from the Chinese side to a balanced and sustainable trade. In Mambalipuram, all we got was a commitment to further talks on the trade issue. Or take the issue of Jammu and Kashmir.
That was a question that I wanted to ask you. Trade was one aspect of it, and that's a very significant part. But the other one is the backdrop in which these talks took place. Because the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, in fact, had flown to China along with the Pakistani Army Chief Qamar Javed Bajwa. He had talks with Xi Jinping, and it is after that that the Chinese president has come to India. And from what has been said in the Foreign Secretary's press briefing, it has been said that Kashmir was neither raised nor discussed in the talks between the Indian Prime Minister and the Chinese President. Do you think, the elephant in the room has not been addressed?
Certainly. But look at the contradiction. On one hand, Prime Minister Modi, in his opening statement, said that the two leaders have had candid discussions. And yet the Indian Foreign Secretary admitted that the issue of Jammu and Kashmir was not even raised. Why did India not raise the issue of Jammu and Kashmir, given the fact that China has engaged in several provocative actions, including placing the issue of J&K on the agenda of the UN Security Council in mid-August? That was the first time that the Security Council held a meeting on the issue of Jammu and Kashmir since 1971. And yet, despite candid discussions that lasted for more than 6 hours between Modi and Xi, the issue of Jammu and Kashmir was not raised. Is this a good thing or a lost opportunity? In my view, it was a lost opportunity because Prime Minister Modi